Subculture Talk. I am your host, Pat66, normally host of Subculture Shock, where I play the best in new goth, industrial, darkwave, deathrock, EBM, and synthpop. And tonight, I'll be interviewing one of the great artists that I've had the pleasure of playing. Joining me in the virtual studio, it's Eric Oberto. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Pat. How you doing?
I'm having a good night. That's a lie. Actually, you saw my equipment was exploding, but I'm having a good night now.
Yeah, we're having a good night now together. We have gotten through the hard part, and the rest is going to be golden.
I can't lie on air. Like, no one would ever forgive me.
Hey, it's me bringing bad luck, and I apologize in advance.
I said it before we started, but I have to compliment just your background here with the lights, your own video. Coincidentally, the video of the song we're listening to right now.
But you got to create your party whenever you get your own chance, and this is a party atmosphere, so we're doing it.
We're doing it. So, thanks for joining me, first of all. As I often start off these interviews with, I like to start with what I call the supervillain origin story. So, how did you get involved? Like, what drew you to this style of music, and then how did you get involved in making it?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, I think I was about 14 years old, and so just a few weeks ago, and I was
just
working.
Choked on my orange juice. Don't do that to
me. Well, geez, I guess it was very shocking. Damn. So I was about 14 years old, and I was working at a catering hall, wearing a bow tie and catering hall where like weddings were going on. And there was this dude that worked there that I think he was about 19 at the time. And he was like the coolest dude I had met at that point. He drove a Mustang. He had like cool clothing. He smoked Camel cigarettes, and he just seemed so cool. And for whatever reason, he thought I was okay, for like someone 5 years younger than him. And so I would like start talking to him, asking him a lot of questions. And then one time he's like, "Hey, you want to go for a ride my Mustang?" It was like after work, and so he took me for a drive, and he played Nightser Ebb, and he played My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, and he played Depeche Mode. And like at that point I was really living in Detroit, and I was listening like metal, like Kiss was one of my favorite bands, then like the whole glam metal scene, I was really into a lot of that, and then like stuff like that. So what I had heard, it was like nothing I'd ever heard before in my life, and that kind of music just like flipped me out. It was so, I was hooked from the moment I heard Join in the Chant. I was just like, just put my arm out, wrap a tourniquet and just put a needle in there, because I was ready to be stoned on that the rest of my life. But the other part of the story is, so I have a condition called synesthesia. And, just basically synesthesia, if you know what it is or don't, it's, where I can see sound and color. Some people have a small degree of it where it's like they hear a number like number 9 and they see green or something like that. 7 is red. For me, it's like a whole second vision, not unlike what you're seeing here, but a lot more complex, and fluid and ever changing. Any sound I hear from your voice, whatever. So when I heard this music, the pictures that I saw in my second vision were unlike anything I could ever comprehend. Keeping in mind, I didn't know I had synesthesia and thought everyone interpreted music this way. But that was when it first came upon me. And that guy was Ed Altunian, who I ended up starting a band with that we can talk about more if you want at some point. But that's how I came into the music, as a young 14-year-old who wanted to hang out with the cool dude. And that guy there also had an Ensoniq SQ80 and a bunch of other keyboard gear. And it turns out that he wrote synthesizer music and such. And so he's kind of the guy that ended up shepherding me into how to do it, how it worked. I wasn't musically inclined at all, or at least I didn't know I was. And so he brought me into the whole fold, by listening to these great bands. I ended up going to concerts with him and his older friends. So I got to hang out with like adults, which was awesome. And then I ended up starting a band with the guy. How about that?
I mean, that's so basically, just to sum it up very succinctly, you discovered the coolest guy you'd ever met, and then you became him.
Yeah, pretty much. You know.
All right,
exactly.
Cool. Interview's over. We're done. Yeah,
we're done, man.
Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, it's like just it's just so cool. I don't even just dumb luck, man. Like some people walk into your life and you never see them coming, and then the impression they leave is something I'll never forget.
So you started out making music with him, and then from what I understand, you actually got out of the music business for a while.
Yeah, so that's fast forwarding quite a bit. So I had a band with him which was called Reign of the Coven, like Reign of the Coven, very goth, very industrial. And that was kind of like the band I was in during high school, you know, and I was like the kid who they were sneaking into the clubs because everybody in the band was older than I was, which was awesome, you know, and I'm like dating women, you know, this kid, you know, it's fantastic. I mean, like, talk about having your cake and eating it too. And so that band went on for a while, and then I got out of high school, and that's when I started Tungsten Coil, the band that had the most commercial success at that time. It was in 1994. I met up with a guy, John Miller, who heard that I had left Reign of the Coven, and then he's like, hey, you want to start a band? And that's how that kind of started. And then that band took off pretty quickly in Detroit, and then we relocated to Austin, Texas in 95, and then played one show and just boom, that blew up. And then if you fast forward, so we're talking 95, Austin, 96 is really when we kind of got popular there. And all the way through 2008 was the last Tungsten Coil show. There was like 3 iterations of Tungsten Coil. I was the only original member all the way through it, because that's the main songwriter and singer. But that band ended at South by Southwest in 2008 at the Elysium in Austin, Texas, which is still the big goth club there today. And we ended up sharing the stage with Peter Murphy.
Holy shit.
I mean, you know, and won an Austin Music Award for Best Industrial, all in the same year. And I didn't realize that was going to be my last show at that time. But some shit had caught up with me, you know. I was partying a lot. My father committed suicide. He put a Civil War rifle in his mouth and, you know, blew his brains out the back of his head. That was 15 years ago last month. I had this crazy girlfriend who was nuts and suicidal. I mean, it was like there's so much had happened at one time that I just kind of was, when I was in the position to be a leader, I didn't have the tools to do it. I was just a mess. So I kind of just quit the band and just said I need to put this torch down for a while. And then, you know, a little time goes by, you lick your wounds, you clean yourself up, dust yourself down and reload. And I saw into the financial industry, like just as a side note, in the background during that time, I was learning the financial industry to a degree because, you know, in the 90s, things were different. Late 90s, early 2000s, you know, we were making money. We had a backer. Things were good. And then that kind of changed. And so we were getting all these accolades now and playing South by Southwest a number of years in a row, winning music awards, but the money was not the same at all. So anyway, I'd been learning the financial industry. And then after all this tragic stuff happened, I just said, screw it. I'm in my young 30s. I'm going to give it a go. And, you know, I never went to college. Hell, I barely graduated high school. And it turned out I was really good with money and finances and sales. So that combination just took off. So I ended up working at a few different companies and like becoming their number one agent, number one manager, number one blah, 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 blah. And then I ended up starting my own company called Innovative Estate Management, which I sold to my business partner in 2019 or something like that. And he still runs the company. And then I moved into crypto. So I don't see clients or anything else anymore. And my actions from the past are what allowed me to jump back into music. And my late 40s, basically.
You just took a brief, very, very small hiatus and lived a completely different life, and now you're back.
Yeah, picture me, a high-end steakhouse, a room full of retired people. I'm in a suit, and I'm the guy up there on stage. So I was still on stage, just a very different kind of stage. And picture me, bringing in clients and managing their entire financial portfolios. And then I moved into doing some keynote speaking as well to incentivize companies to get off their ass and do better. I'd be the guy on stage doing that as well. So somehow I managed to gravitate back to the stage during that whole time, but a very different stage.
You can
scenario.
take the boy out of the stage, but you...
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been interesting.
Wow, you gave me a lot to work with there. So I think just talking about the music in general on both sides of it, is it okay if we talk about the synesthesia?
It is.
Okay. I always want to check on that sort of thing first. So as someone that doesn't experience the world this way, you said that the pictures that you got, the visuals you got from electronic industrial music and synthwave and synthpop was very different from anything you've seen before. Now, that was when you were a teenager. Here you are in your 40s now. Are the images still their own thing? Can you still recognize the look of this type of music apart from everything else?
Very good question. So we have to catch up on something. So
yeah,
the unfortunate answer is no, it's not like it was, and it's very difficult, and I'll explain that. So when I was a kid, I didn't know I had synesthesia. I also had dyslexia at the same time. My parents weren't really involved much. So, I'm the kid who's being told, you're stupid. You're never going to amount to anything. Like I thought I was dumb. I had no ideas. I couldn't, keep up with the rest of the kids. I was too distracted by the second vision, and then I couldn't read well. Even though I could read, it was just slow because everything was dyslexic.
Right.
So it's this amazing gift that I learned. When I write music, I don't understand theory or mathematics of music. I just paint pictures. That's all I've ever done. And so about 6 years ago, one of the worst things, not the worst, amazingly, but one of the worst things that's happened to me, I'm sitting on the couch talking to my wife, and all of a sudden in my right ear, I feel this massive pressure build up, and then I hear this pop.
Oh, no.
And that was my right ear going deaf.
Oh, my God.
Not only did I lose all the high frequencies and the mid frequencies and most of the low, but it replaced with this tinnitus whistle swirling thing, like a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no breaks, no vacations going on right now as I talk to you. And the reason I bring that up is because it really completely screwed up the pictures in my brain, the synesthesia. It's not, sometimes it's a huge hindrance, very depressing. And so for about, I thought I was done. I couldn't write music anymore because I wrote by ear, I played by ear. And then I just went into another, downward spiral because I'm like, shit, I'm never going to write music again. Even though I wasn't performing music at that time, I still wrote all the time. It's
right.
Something I do, And so I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do now? I felt like my life was over because I had better than perfect hearing in both ears. And I had such a gifts available to me. And then they just got stolen just like that. So for 2 years, I was just kind of hard to be around completely.
Understandably.
My wife will probably attest to that. I was not in a good place. And then I kind of, my brain started to acclimate. I got a hearing aid, which doesn't, I went to like 7 specialists, spent a bunch of money, and none of them could help me at all. Talk about depressing, injecting steroids into your eardrum and all this garbage. None of it worked. And then I got a hearing aid, which doesn't solve my problem, but it does sort of distract my brain from the missing information. And it sort of you remember those old TVs, you know, where you tune the bunny ears,
Yep.
you know, sort of does that, kind of, not what I would want at all. So after I kind of calmed down and realized, you know, this is the way it's going to be. There ain't a damn thing you can do about it. You know, acceptance takes place. You know, there's the grieving stages to go through when you lose something. So for the next 2 years after that, I just sort of was kind of okay. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm never doing music again. I just had decided I'll be okay with it. Even though I wasn't, I had to live with it. And then the next 2 years, so we're talking about a 6-year period, I just decided I needed to find a way to do this. So I enlisted the help of a number of different friends and tech to figure out how to make this work. And I had a really good friend, John Robert Craig, who does my mastering now, because I can't master a song on my own now. I just can't. So mostly he and I figured out about visual aids, where I could visually look at the sound waves, visually identify where the sound is in the stereo field, and a whole list of other things. And the funny part is, when I look at sound waves and stuff, it sort of preoccupies my mind and sort of syncs up with this broken synesthesia picture and sort of makes sense, kind of makes sense.
So you've translated from one visual medium, almost like painting with colors, to a different visual medium of the construction of the sound wave.
Pretty much. And then the stereo field, because, you know, you have a lot of different tools you can use in like Ozone 8 is a mastering program, where you can like see what the sound is doing in the entire stereo field, like in 3-dimensional.
Right.
And so like when you play a sound, you can see how it bouquets, where it's going, what it's doing. And that helped, you know, and then seeing, you know, where things are left and right was really a big deal. And then looking at EQ. And so when I'm writing something, you know, sounds will step on each other. So I used to do everything just by ear, you know, even like sequencing, I learned by ear. You know, on my Ensoniq EPS 16 Plus Turbo, the screen was this big, you know. You know, so you have to do everything by ear when you're sampling, you name it. So I was just so ear guy, so I had to learn to be so visual guy. So the thing is, you know, I'm a very prideful person. I never want to be, you know, the handicap or the gimp or the guy who needs extra help. You know, never want to be that guy. So it's pushed me to work so hard. I mean, I spent 2 years trying and failing over and over again, to where, oh God, I was just like punching myself in the face every day is how it felt. And then one day I kind of found a way to get in there, you know? And then now the weird thing is, I feel like I'm writing the best music I've ever written in my life. And then now I've branched into acting, I've branched into producing, I'm editing videos, I'm scoring films. I mean, shit, I wish I was this driven before.
Well, I mean, because all that drive didn't disappear once you figured it out. It was all still there. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I got to do something with it now. Time to do a million things.
Yeah, and then the race against time, you know, I'm a cancer survivor as well. And in high school, I got cancer. And so, like, I've always been very aware of time and the race, and lots of people in my life have died all through my childhood. And now recently people die, and it's just the way life is. So like, to me, time has been very important. And so now that I'm older and I have these conditions to work around, it's like, just try to, I don't successfully do it every day, but I try to just achieve as much as I can in the space of a day, because you never know when you're going to run out of time.
You know, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone that I feel meets the eats their Wheaties requirement as much as you, honestly. Like, it sounds like some days you wake up and accomplish more things before breakfast than I can even think of doing in a day.
Well, you know, that happens a lot, but it's not as smooth. You know, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of self-doubt behind that, fear of failure. I mean, I just run as fast as I can to outpace it, you know? It's not like I don't have it all together. but I damn well try.
So this gets me to kind of one of my favorite topics. I like to figure out what happens, like where the driving force of an artist's lyrics come from. We've talked about the music a bit, about how first you did it by trying to make pictures of the sound, and then literally doing it by looking at the pictures of the sound, about the sound waves. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the lyrics, would you say that your lyrics are influenced by a lot of this tragedy and hardship of your life?
Yeah, definitely. I think I wouldn't say I've had the hardest life, because you can always find other people that have had it worse.
There's actually a recent XKCD comic about that, how the people that have gone through the most struggles are always the first ones to go, well, a lot of people have it worse than me.
Well, it's true, because like, a good friend of mine, he's in a wheelchair. He has been since he was 13 years old. We're the same age. And, I know he'd trade places with me in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I just know he would. We've talked about it. So I think, so in my young days of writing, say like Reign of the Coven, it was like an angst, I matter, like stop writing me off. Like I was written off in school. My parents weren't really involved. And I was just felt like this alone kid who hated everybody. And then I got cancer on top of it. So it was very much a very rebellious sort of, fuck you. Are we okay swearing on this show?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I like that you asked that after cursing.
Well, apologize later, ask for forgiveness,
Oh yeah, no. This show is flagged for adults. Like, ain't no fucking kid should be watching this show. No.
Perfect. I'm not a kids guy anyway. I'll never reproduce, so we're perfect. I decided not to. So when I was younger, it was pretty much like, I'm here, I exist, rebellious, and I'm not going to take shit from you. That was kind of my attitude. And then like in the middle of the times, like Tungsten Coil, for maybe like all the way through the heyday, it was kind of my outlet for sort of my alter ego, devious, things that I maybe wanted to do, or it's just an outlet to be kind of, I don't give a shit about anything, and like sort of, I'm a sexual predator, I'm hunting women, or whatever. There was all sorts of different things, and it was a lot of references to drugs, because I did a lot of acid when I was younger, lots of LSD and that kind of stuff, expand your mind. So it was like a mixture of drugs and sex and chaos. Now it's more of like self-reflection on myself, and maybe the things I don't like about myself, or things that I need to improve on or remind myself about. And then additionally, about what the hell is going on this planet and the people that are on it. It's like, it's chaotic. Like I've made a lot of changes in my life. I've been a vegan for about 4 years now. Pretty much eat organic everything. I really take care of my health, and I'm very conscientious on my footprint, carbon footprint, my what I leave behind. And then I look around at the planet and I'm like, oh God, what's going on? And I used to be one of those people who didn't care about anything. And so, I have a lot of experience in being the asshole. And now I have a lot of experience in being the guy who's like, what the fuck are you doing? And so I write a lot about that. It's kind of like a lot of my stuff lately is analyzing, this is what's going on and what are we doing about it? And lots of it about not letting your life waste, time going by. Closer than ever before, the new song, you're closer than ever before, closer to the final closing door. Well, that's a fact of every day. You're closer to death every second. What are you doing about it? And Darkness Never Lies is about the lies we tell ourselves, that little voice inside where it says, don't do that, you do it anyway, or that's not a good idea, but you do it anyway. And those lies in the end, are the things that end up, ruining our lives and not following the truth and not being an honest person. So it's a lot more reflective now, maybe more mature. But I think the music, the way I'm writing the music, it doesn't sound like a public service announcement. I don't want people to look to me as a dictator of what they should or shouldn't do, but I do want to invoke thought and let them get their own interpretation, maybe metaphorically even, from the concepts that I'm putting out there.
Well, and it seems like with Darkness Never Lies, for instance, looking at the lyrics there, you know, there's this feeling of nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You're talking about kind of breaking down the lies that we tell ourselves, but even then, you've still got that feeling of you know, the end is near. There's nothing to show you this is the end of the ride, you know.
Right.
You've run out of time, and it was never about you. So it seems like your music lately is hitting this moment of, okay, now that I've reached this, you know, you talked about personally feeling like time is limited. You've come to You've seen a lot of evidence of your mortality and of everyone else's mortality, and that's going to pierce holes in the part of you that you know is like, well, I don't give a shit, and I can say whatever I want. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, what if everything I say does actually matter, and I've only got a little bit more time to say things and do things?
You're hitting it on the nose. And see, that's the beauty about art and creation, is that you're grabbing things out of there, and we're in sync, but you have your, you know, what it made you feel, which is so fantastic. And you're absolutely right. You know, anyone in your life that you love, whenever you talk to them and you say goodbye, you should tell them you love them, because you might not see them again. And it just happened to me last year. My good friend Guy Alfano, dear friend I met in 11th grade, you know, had a massive heart attack and died. He's 46 years old. And, you know, we weren't in an argument or anything, but he wasn't living healthy, you know, chain smoking, not eating well, overweight. And I've been on his ass. I'm like, dude, I told my dear friend, I said, listen, dude, you're going to die young if you don't change your shit. And that's not what I want. I love you to death. You're going to die. And he did. You know, and then my dad, when he committed suicide, we weren't speaking. And I know it wasn't my fault, but I'll never be able to shake that I didn't get to tell him, you know, that argument when we were in was stupid, you know? Yeah. So you're right. It's always running out. And that voice at the end, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, it was never about you. That's like the getting to the end of your life and looking back at the folly that was the massive bullshit mess you left there by just not taking every moment like it could be your last, you know? And I think I don't have it down. I'm not perfect. I screw up, but like I try to make every moment count. I know, exactly, right? But like this interview, you know, I'm just trying to be as genuine as I can, get to know you a little, and just be real. You know what I mean? That's just the way it should be.
Well, and so you talk about not wanting to do anyone's thinking for them, but I feel like the message of, hey, maybe you all should start thinking for yourselves and look at what you're doing and looking at what is happening because of your actions. That's way more powerful than giving them an opinion to think.
Well, nobody wants your opinion unless they ask for it. So that's the beauty of art. You know, if someone digs your groove, you know, the vibe you're putting out there, then there's a chance that unsolicited advice can be received. And I think that's pretty cool, you know? And I think it's misused. There's so much music out there and so much stupid shit, some brilliant music out there as well. But I think a lot of it's squandered, you know, to where you have such an opportunity to actually deliver unsolicited advice that people will open their hearts, minds up to, and they'll listen. Why say something stupid? You know, why not deliver the goods?
So, just to get even more introspective on here,
sure,
because this is Thinks Too Much Radio here. Do you look back at your music career and do you kind of want to go back to that 14 and 19-year-old kid playing in these other bands and kind of change the way that he approaches music, or do you feel like you had to be this person in order to now realize the things you've realized?
It's loaded. So there's grass is always greener on the other side, and if you knew what you knew now, and you could go back, but at the same time, the only way you got, like you said, the only way you got to know what you know now is the only way you know how to do shit right is to fuck everything up for a number of times and do it all wrong, and then the answers are just clearly there because the unsolicited advice, I remember when I was younger talking to a lot of people older than me, and them, some of them giving bad advice, but I remember I could tell I was getting good advice, and you're like, I'm not listening to you, you're old, that kind of deal. I'll figure it out myself. So if I could go back, there's a number of things that I wish I could have done differently, for sure. I mean, Tungsten Coil, we partied so much and so hard and had so much fun that we were on the road all the time, living at strip clubs pretty much. And I'm not gonna lie, it was fantastic. We had a backer that threw money around like I've never seen. It was so great, showing up to shows in limos and stuff often. And we should have really spent that money and time with a producer, and really focused on making albums. But when you're young, I had so much fun. I mean, the memories I have are just crazy. I mean, I've done some shit and I've seen some stuff, and those stories are magical. Like when I tell those stories to people, they're like, you did what? I'm like, yeah, this really happened. Let me tell you this story. So, yes and no. There's definitely part of me, like now that I'm more mature, who's like, yeah, I wish I would have done these different things, but that's kind of a business mind speaking. And isn't the point of youth to be crazy?
Well, and it's a difference between knowledge and experience. Like, you might have known these things back then, but by experiencing the life that you experienced, that's created this feeling, this ability to express what you have expressed, and this idea of doing what you can with the time left to you. Because if you'd never really experienced how precious time is and how many things could be lost, maybe you wouldn't be giving that message now.
That's so spot on, and it goes back to something I say, and disclosure ahead of time. If you went to college, anyone listening, okay, fine. But my feeling is, you can't get that life experience through a book. You can't get it from some professor who's teaching and isn't in the real world. He's teaching. You just can't. To me, I everything I have, was from nothing to something, and it's all from like blood, sweat, and tears and personal experience. And maybe that's why, I feel I can be genuine, because I think I've earned the right to just, I am me, and this is who I am, and this is how it is. Where I've met a lot of people over the years who've gone to college and went the route, and 2.5 kids and blah blah blah. I can't really relate to those people that well. I try to, and that's a lot of people, so I'm very outnumbered. I understand that, but I think just true life experience of doing crazy shit, really, one, it's fulfilling. Like I'm like an extreme guy. I even, like a couple years ago, I started skydiving. Because it's such a rush, and I've always liked doing extreme things. Like I do a lot of like extreme hiking and climbing and stuff like that. Stuff where you could die. And I think I gravitate towards fun where you could die, because there's never a moment to feel more alive than confronting death, so to speak. Not like I'm sitting there, trying to kill myself, but there's like this rush of overcoming and escaping by the seat of your pants, if you will. And that's all experience as well, which makes me value like this moment. We're doing an interview, and I've seen people do interviews and just sort of, fluff their way through it, not be prepared, not whatever. It was, I'm just having a great time, because I have an outlet for true experience on a regular basis, several of them. Do you know what I mean? Like different kinds of stuff, but, try to keep it extreme as much as you can. Even now, it's a different kind of extreme, but I think that whole speech there, if people were just tuning in and not realizing that I was talking to a dark music artist, they picked it up
right away. Where it's like, I like doing things where I might die.
Well, my wife still doesn't understand that part of me. I mean, it is what it is.
Well,
there's not. Have you jumped out of a plane?
I have not. I did. So I worked as a ropes instructor at a summer camp, and then did off-season stuff with like school groups and business groups and that sort of thing. And so we did a lot of things with heights, with like climbing towers and just strapping yourself up on one rope hanging from a tree horizontally, and all you've got are your carabiners on that rope as you try to walk across another rope. So I get that feeling of just being scared out of your goddamn mind, but also just being so happy when you get back on the ground. It was like you just feel alive after you've done it.
I can equate it to, we're about to go again. I usually have a group with me that goes, and it's just like about every 6 months. So my birthday's coming up in April, and so
Happy birthday.
Thank you. There'll usually be 6 to 10 of us who jump, and then there's a ground crew party of people partying with us and filming and stuff. It's usually about the same equality in numbers. And the reason I go about every 6 months is because it feels like I'm a quart low of oil by the time 6 months comes around and you need to gas up the tank again. That rush you get from it. The best I could equate it to is when I was 16, when I first did acid. That changed my life. Like the expansion, that it's like there was a layer of things above and below reality that I didn't know existed until then. And then when I jumped out of a plane, in my mid 40s, it was like a feeling of like adrenaline rush, but more like gas in the tank. That maybe like having like a turbocharger on an engine. Like I had an engine before that, and then now I had a turbocharger I didn't know existed, And when it starts to run, you just got to gas up the tank when it starts to run down. And it's very strange because I can feel it happening about 5 months in, and all of a sudden it's, got to schedule another jump. It's weird.
So would you say that that's probably part of the reason why you're throwing yourself into so many projects now as well? Because we touched on this briefly. You're writing a short film, you're acting, you're doing scores for movies, you have a song featured in an upcoming movie. Are you looking also for just those experiences that give you more gas in the tank? Like you just have to keep throwing yourself at things because that makes you feel more alive?
Well, I think that's a yes for sure. And it's not the only reason, which is interesting. So I'm one of those people that, I don't know, maybe I don't know any better, like that I can or can't do something. So I just do it, whether I've done it before or not. And I'll just try it. And luckily, amazingly, or thankfully, one of those things, I've been able to do a lot of things pretty well. And so I'll see something shiny and I'll be like, oh, that's shiny. And then I'll see something else shiny and I'll be like, oh, that's shiny. And pretty soon I'm trying to chase a bunch of things. So I have to be careful because I'll have too many shiny things on my plate. And then you're kind of half-assing it, Yeah. So you have to, but to answer your question, yes, it is. I love putting myself out there. It's kind of like when I went into keynote speaking. I'd never done that before. I never went to a class for that. I just did what I thought I would do. And then people paid me a good amount of money to get up there and do it. It was crazy, Yeah. And I just, it just worked, And so it's like, yeah, that whole feeling of like live without a net, you could fail. Yeah, I think it bleeds over into there for sure. And then I just love creating art. I love performing, and hell, I could relapse with cancer any day. I have no idea, So it's like I just sort of just try to do as many things I can. So when I get to that point where I'm at the end and I'm looking around in the dark, because you come into this world alone, and you're going to leave alone. When it's my moment, I want to look back and just be like, man, you did the best you could. I'm not going to be one of those jack-offs. I've had a wonderful life and I have achieved now. I just want to be like, man, you gave it a pretty good shot, man. You went for it. and we can leave this place. It's fine.
I feel really bad to follow up such a poignant and well-said speech with the fact that once you started talking about being distracted by new shiny things, I just now want to refer to you as Eric Oberto, Artistic Ferret.
I used to have a ferret.
We used to rescue ferrets when I was a kid, so that's immediately what I think of.
I loved my ferret. His name was Billy the Kid, and I found him. I was in the woods in Detroit. Ferrets were illegal back then. I don't know if they are now, but in Detroit, I don't know if it had to do with the indigenous plants and species. I'm not sure.
There are some states that just made them illegal, and I never knew why.
I never understood it either. And I'm in the woods with a buddy of mine, and I see this ferret. And I'd never seen one except in that movie, The Beastmaster, Kodo and Kodo. God. That was it, right? So then I look, and
I had
I'm like,
forgotten
hey,
that movie exists.
You should watch it again. It's funny.
It's time.
It's pretty good. And Midge from that 70s show, Midge is the wife of the next door neighbor. She was the hot redhead in The Beastmaster. Trivia. So this ferret, I like motion over to him, and he comes over to me, and he seems fairly calm, and he's doing his little dance. So I picked him up, and then he was mine. It was cool.
That's adorable.
It was awesome. It was really awesome.
So we are managing to just bust through some time right now, but I know it was important to talk about how your new single, Closer Than Ever Before, is being featured in an upcoming movie, and you're really happy about that.
Yeah, I really am. That upcoming movie is Malibu Horror Story, and that song is Closer Than Ever Before. And I've got the entire credit scroll, which is great. I had the entire credit scroll for Amityville Cult with Darkness Never Lies. And, we talked about having the song in the actual film, but then you get 30 seconds and it's quieter. So the credit scroll is the money spot, in my opinion. And this film, it's like a 10-year work that finally has come to an end. And right now it's winning film festival after film festival. I think it's won 7 or 8 right now.
Damn.
And it's in for best horror, and it's in another 50, 50. So they're doing their cycle into the festivals right now, their festival run. And then they're looking at hopefully releasing in fall of this year, which I'm hoping is the case. And I got involved as an executive producer as well because I believed in that film that much. And I've screened it a number of times here and had some viewing parties of my own in my theater here, and it's fantastic. It is so well done. I think it's going to be a runaway hit. I really, really, really do. If they can if enough people see it, I think it will be a runaway hit. And the film festival circuit is loving all over it right now. So it's quite an honor to be in that film. And I'm hoping it opens up some additional doors to have music in, of course, other films. And then I've scored a couple of small things here. That's been a lot of fun. I've never scored anything before. I just, again, felt I could. It was shiny. And that went well. And I'm kind of enjoying that. So it's kind of a big honor. This is a Hollywood film. It's going to be in theaters. It's not the last one I did. I starred in too. I played the demon Asmodeus in Amityville Cult. That's a lower budget film, but we did manage to get national distribution through Walmart and worldwide streaming. So, not a small feat for a very small budget film. And
right.
That movie is really how I ended up back in music, to be honest. I could tell you about that if you want to hear about it. Dude,
it's your interview. Go for it.
Sure. Yeah. So briefly, I met a friend who was in town from Detroit. He was in Denton, which is just north of where I'm at in Dallas. And we met for drinks, and some other people were there. And this one guy is an actor who's been in a decent amount of films and shows. And then he started making his own horror films. And I said, hey, if you ever need any music for a horror film, let me know. I write music. This is when I still hadn't proven that I could write music yet, but I was trying.
Yeah.
So I figured, fuck it, see what happens. And so about 6 months go by and I don't hear from him. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's not going to happen. And then I get this call, and he calls me up and he says, hey, it's me, so-and-so. And, I know we talked about doing music, but, do you act as well? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Sure.
And yeah, sure. Absolutely. All the time. Just not on camera anywhere for anyone. but sure, So I just went with it. And then,
how do you define acting?
I just said, yeah, absolutely. Because I felt I could. I hadn't proved it yet, but my dad was a big theater actor. I've always been the guy who goes in and out of characters. I always loved joking around. So I figured, you know what? Let's try it out. So then that went well, and I got to play a demon. He said, don't take this the wrong way, but you look like the perfect demon. And I was like, I've been training in the goth world my entire life.
My time has come.
The culmination of all that goth training. So that ended up, and then we got to talking about music. He's like, would you like to do a song for the film? And I'm like, this gets better by the second. So terrified, I started writing a song, and I had figured some things out. And then my buddy John Craig, the guy who does my mastering now, he was very instrumental in helping me, make sure I got it done right, and was right there to support me sonically, as far as the mixing goes. And I just said, fuck it. So it's really film, acting in a film that got me back into music, really pushed me. I had a deadline and a job now. I had something I had to do, and I couldn't make another excuse about it, and fear was no longer an option.
All right, so the name of the film that we all need to see when it comes out in theaters then, again, is...
Malibu Horror Story.
Malibu Horror Story.
You can go to MalibuHorrorStory.com to check all the information about that out.
And is the Amityville Cult, is that still streaming anywhere? How do we get our hands on that?
It is. You should still be able to buy it in Walmart, and it also streams on Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
And a bunch of other ones as well. Like, that film kind of blew up in South America. They loved it. I don't know that a lot of critics loved it here, because it is a lower budget film, and it was everyone's first film, really, as a collective, not working with someone else. But yes, it's pretty much sold through all its copies in Walmart, and I think they reordered. So that's not a bad sign.
Hot damn. And they had more than 5 copies made, so that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think their initial run was they put 5 copies in every store in the chain, and then went from there.
Hot damn.
It's like 4,500 stores in America, I think, something like that. So it's pretty significant.
So I kind of joked at the beginning of the interview that you're living the dream, but it sounds like you're really living the dream.
I'm trying to make that dream a reality every chance I get. So, it's kind of like sort of being, I don't know, like reborn as a kid again, not religiously, but I mean, just sort of getting a second lease. Like, all the changes I've made in my life, health-wise, planet-wise, and then artistically, it's just sort of like hitting a do-over. It's too bad you can't become young again, but at the same time, you can do enough things to make aging a good thing, and then live that dream.
I think that's honestly, this has been one of the more uplifting interviews I've had in a while.
I'm glad you say that. I'm really glad that I'm having that impression, because there's a saying that I gravitate towards that I think I made up. I don't know. But, I think I've always been a kind of dark, depressed kind of guy. And I still am to a lot of degree. I just work really hard at fighting it. But I found that if you truly want to embrace all that's beautiful in the world, the way to do that is to put your arms around all the dark stuff and not try to run from it. Really just emotionally lean into and push as far as you can into all the dark stuff that goes on in your life, so you can understand it. And when you do that, by embracing the dark, the light and beauty that comes to you is like the gift you never saw coming. Because most people run from the dark, and I think that they miss everything that's beautiful when it's right for 6 inches in front of their damn face. It's because they're running.
Yeah, I mean, because if you run from the darkness in yourself, you're still running from yourself. You're not accepting yourself. And you can't actually grow if you don't accept what you are to start with.
Well, you're right, and we're all human, so that means we're all. It's not like I'm the only dark person that exists. That's bullshit. I'm just one of the guys that embraces it. Like, we all have dark shit that goes on in our heads that wakes us up in the middle of the night screaming. That's just the life it is. That's the way it is. So embrace it.
You can't wake up screaming if you never go to sleep, though.
I've tried that. It's harder to do now.
No kidding.
I used to be able to do it, but it's not as easy now.
All right, Eric. So I asked you where to find the movies. Also, where do we find your music?
The easiest thing to do is just go to my website, ericoberto.com, ERICOBERTO.com. Everything links from there. It's simple, and social media sucks. So go to my website. You'll get to where you want to go a lot easier. Join the mailing list, and I'll keep you apprised of what's going on, and we'll become family.
All right. So for those of you that are watching live on Twitch, coming up next is the Afterparty Mix Show. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you should go click on Eric Oberto's latest video next. And the name of that video again is?
Closer Than Ever Before.
Excellent. Yes. And Eric, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Man, thanks for having me. I had a fucking blast. This has been awesome.
Me too. And everybody else, we'll see you in a little bit.